align your actions for something bigger than what you've been given. Because that is how you are going to become a better you.
Chad Peterman here, and you are listening to Can't Stop the Growth, a platform for leaders and teams to grow and thrive. We highlight the importance of personal development, pursuing greatness, and always chasing your potential. Let's get into it.
Setting big goals really works to clarify what it is that you need to work on. So, classic example, if I just want to get, we're nearing the end of the year, I look at the year, I look at my performance, and I say I'm here and here. And I just want to get, just a little bit better over the course of next year. Well, what that doesn't do is it doesn't allow us to get out of our comfort zone. We can essentially be the same person we were this year, next year, and probably accomplish a little bit more, right? We've learned things throughout the year. We've gotten better at things, all of those things. And if you give it over the course of a year, you should be able to get a little bit better. But what we talked about 2 weeks ago is that if we set that goal 10 times higher, so if you were to take what you did this year or what you were aiming for this year and you multiplied it by 10, that's not saying that you're going to hit it, but what would your actions on a daily basis look like if that was your goal? What would you have to change? Because the idea of a goal is to effectively change who you are today, become a different person. And so we talked about how these big goals add to clarifying what it is that truly are going to move the needle, what is going to move us closer. And those changes are behavioral, not results, right? You set a 10x result goal out there, but at the end of the day, you're never going to change that result. You're going to change the behaviors that you have each and every day. So, as you set that goal, then work backwards, right? And that's what we're going to talk about today is setting a 10x goal, if you've never done it, can be pretty damn frightening, right? Like, there's no way I can do that. There's absolutely no way that I can accomplish that. You know what? If that's what you're saying, that's a fantastic start. Because if you set the goal and in your mind, you're like, oh yeah, I can do that. That should be easy. Well, you're essentially saying it would be easy and I can do that because of who you are today. The person you are today, yeah, they can probably accomplish 10% more. No doubt. Like you could literally fall into it. You could probably go, if there's 250 working days, you could probably go 200 of them and not do a damn thing differently and really focus in for 50 days and probably hit that 10%. But it's who are you going to become? Who do you want to become? And that'll be the differentiation that we talk about today. Do you need it or do you want it? And so we're going to get into, once we set our 10x goal, where are we going to get stuck? What are the things that are going to hang us up on a daily basis? And my hope is that we provide some action steps as to how in the hell can I actually do this? And don't think you're like the only one. I got to figure out the same stuff. I set my 10x goal. Well, okay, how am I going to change? If I'm going to achieve something 10x bigger than what it is today, I'm literally going to have to change as a person. So how do we keep ourselves motivated? Because the first thing you're probably thinking is, okay, I got this 10x goal, super excited, I'm pumped up. What do they always say? January 1st, right? January 1st, I got my goals. You know what the most depressing day of the year is? January 24th. You know why that is? Because that's when people give up on what they set out to do on January 1st. So how do we combat that? Because it's natural, right? Like January 1st, we get to the 2nd, we get to the 3rd, we get to the 4th, and we're like, I don't feel 10x better. Because usually what happens, you set out a new goal, that first day you'll fall backwards if you're focused on the result as opposed to the behaviors that you need to have to hit it. You're probably not going to hit a 10x goal by the end of next year. I'd be okay with that. But if I was, what would that look like? So a lot of today's stuff that I'm going to talk about is out of this book here. It's called The Gap in the Gain. It's by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. So Dan Sullivan is a guy who owns a company called Strategic Coach, coaches a lot of entrepreneurs. I've never met him, but I'd like to meet him someday because I really like what he has to say. And so this book, if you want to know how to combat the thoughts and the fears and the anxiety around setting big goals, pick up this book or go listen to it. I've read probably half of it so far. And what I would tell you is an easy listen too, because there's a lot of like quick hitter stuff that's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And so in this book, he talks about, and one of the quotes on one of the early pages is, the way to measure your progress is backwards against where you started, not your ideal. Now, let's break that down. The ideal is your 10x goal, right? That's where you want to be. But oftentimes, what we find is that we measure wrong. We measure our progress wrong. Because why do people quit on the 24th of January? Because they've seen no result, right? They set this big goal that they expect to hit by the end of the year, but they want the result by January 24th. That's 23 days. What can you do in 23 days if you're focused on what you aim to achieve by the end of the year? So what I always talk about, I've talked about it a number of times, doubling your goal. Whatever you think your goal is, then double it. Because it's not going to happen tomorrow. So stop getting so frustrated. If you ever find yourself frustrated with a goal, you're measuring wrong. And more than likely, you're focused on all the wrong things. You're more than likely focused on a lot of things you can't control. Has anyone ever been able to control something they can't control? You can't. So just give it up. Screw it. And focus on the things that you can control. Now, I talked early about making sure it is something you want and not need. The greatest source of frustration in a big goal is when you attach a need to it as opposed to a want. I need to hit this goal in order to be happy. I need to hit this goal in order to think I've achieved something. If you need, your frustration is going to build exponentially. You should never need to hit a goal. If you need to hit a goal, it's set too low. If you don't want it, then you never started from the right place. Because guess what? A goal is never going to give you happiness. That's what you're after, right? In a goal, fulfillment, happiness, peace of mind, achievement. It's never going to give you that. I mean, think about all the stories. You probably heard them, these people that make zillions of dollars and yet they're never happy. They never achieve happiness because oftentimes they felt like they needed it. They needed to get there in order to achieve it. Now, a lot of times when we think about need, we think very surface level, right? It's like, well, I need this because I didn't set my own personal budget right. I need this because I've got to do this, or I need this because of whatever it may be. Well, oftentimes what you will find, and you'll have to sit and do some thinking, a lot of our needs are tied to internal motivations. Let me give you an example. So, for the longest time, and something that I have dealt with my entire life, probably more so here as I've gotten older, because then you start to get a little smarter, you start to get a little introspective, you kind of figure out your, why you do things. And so, for the longest time, I needed my dad's approval. I needed him to say that he was proud of me, to say that I did a good job, that I had accomplished something. And the reason I say that is because my family, if you don't know, I get teased about this too. We're not like the most like probably not going to come up to you in the hallway and give you a big old hug. All right. That's just not the way our family has been wired. All right. We're very, I could count on one hand how many times I've seen my mom and dad cry. That's just not who we are. And it comes a lot from my dad's side of the family because my grandma is 83 years old and she is the toughest son of a gun I've ever seen in my entire life. And so that is something that is been kind of something that I've been surrounded with my whole life. Now, is it a good thing? Probably not from an emotional standpoint, but it's something that we have to battle through, right? And so for the longest time, that was why I did what I did. And I would come home so frustrated. I'm like, oh my gosh, we just did something amazing. And, it didn't even seem like dad cared or was proud. And I knew he was, but he didn't show it. And so I'm wanting something or needing something, better said, I'm needing something from someone who is not wired to give it to me. How stupid is that? That's insanity. Continually doing the same thing, expecting something different. So where in your life is there a need buried really deep? A need that says, I got cut from the high school basketball team and I'm going to prove that coach wrong by being a success or getting the team or whatever it may be. Everybody has those stories of you remember those people that did you wrong, right? And it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to show them. Well, is that really a want that you want to have in your life? Or is that a need? So did you set your goal high because it's a need to fulfill something inside? And what I'll tell you is really extrapolating, why did you set that big goal? It's got to be surrounded by a want. And to me, that is when personally I got a lot more comfortable setting big goals, is because I said, screw that. I know my dad's proud. I know he cares. That's great. He's probably not going to tell me because that's not how he's wired. And that's okay. But no, now I want this. I want to build something special because of what it can do for everybody else. And the key there is, as we said, is you're never going to achieve happiness by accomplishing a goal. You have to understand that you need to be happy now. So a big step for me in being happy was understanding that my dad is proud. I don't need to do things to substantiate that I did it and then I should get this. Does that make sense? Hopefully you guys are thinking of things in your life that may have popped up that it's like, oh shit, that's really stupid. Why would I think that? And it's okay to think that because that's human, right? That's natural. A lot of setting big goals is breaking out of what typical everyday people are going to do, and why so many don't set big goals, why so many don't achieve big goals is because they just set them because they think they need it. If you're going to set a goal and you're going to achieve it, you need to understand that you need to be happy with where you are today. And the best way to achieve happiness along the journey of achieving a big goal is measurement, is looking back at where you were and where you are today. As I think about it, my big goal, 10X goal, is to be $1 billion company. So if I were to measure my success at achieving my 10X goal on this year's performance versus that goal, I'd have a lot to be disappointed about because we're not close. We got a long way to go. But that's the whole point. We set it big on purpose so that we know how to act every single day. Well, I will tell you that because I have been working on judging where we were to where we are, I will tell you this week alone, I've sat in some of the most impressive presentations and seen some people just doing amazing things around here that I'm like, holy shit, that idea, that project, that thought, that, report, that whatever we were doing, that can scale. That can be really valuable in taking us there. And we didn't have that yesterday. Before that person came in, we didn't have that. So it's set the goal big, but then get very comfortable with getting a little bit better each day. Because when we get a little bit better each day, but we're focused on the right things, we get pulled there even faster. Now, let's break that down. If we're missing a piece of that, so let's say we don't set the big goal, okay? So let's take that out of the equation. And we're like, shoot, I'm cool with getting a little bit better each day, celebrating the wins, doing this thing. That'd be awesome. Well, what's going to happen if we didn't set the big goal? Well, we're going to be focused on the wrong things. We're going to be focused on all the things we can't control. We're going to be placing blame on others because we're only focused on getting a little bit better. We're not focused on the right behaviors. We're focused on making it more complicated so that we have an excuse as to why we can only get a little bit better. So let's take another component of it out. All right, we talked about setting the big goal. So set the big goal, focused on the right things, but I get frustrated because I'm only getting a little bit better each day. So we're measuring wrong, right? We're measuring against that 10x goal. Well, guess what? We're going to get there. Frustrated. You're not going to get there. Doesn't seem like it, right? And you're focused on all the wrong things. So again, you need all three components. Big goal, measure right, and understand that you want it, you don't need it. So the reason the book is titled The Gap and the Gain is because the gap is when you measure against your ideal. It's when you measure wrong. The gain is when you measure what you have achieved versus where you started. Focus on the things that you can control. The more you focus on the things that you can't, your frustration level will go through the roof. If you find yourself frustrated at any point in time, I can tell you, you are living in the gap. You are living in a place where you are measuring against an ideal as opposed to measuring on how I can get better today. And if you measure on a day-to-day basis, guess what? You can be happy every day. You will rarely see me in a bad mood, except for when I have to listen to the Chipmunks Christmas songs. But other than that, I'm usually pretty good. But it's because I've trained myself to understand that we're going to measure from where we were yesterday, and we're going to focus on the things that we can control. The other piece of information to consider is that when you set these big goals, your big goal is not reality, right? You haven't achieved it. It's not real. So is it smart to measure yourself against something that isn't real? Whereas yesterday's results, those are real. That actually happened. So we can use that as a baseline to continue to move forward. And the great part about it is that if you set your goal right, but you focus on the day-to-day improvements and measuring from where you started, you may not hit that big goal. But if that is what is kind of illuminating that pathway to it, you're going to be focused on the right things and you're going to get better every day. You're going to find the happiness when you measure from where you started. When you live in the gain, you're going to start happy and you're going to continue that. Because I can guarantee you when we hit 1 billion, it's going to be like, well, what are we going to do? We're going to set the next goal. And like I said, I don't need to get there, but I want to. I hope you want to too. It'd be pretty cool. No one's ever done it. Someone's got to do it. It's a cool thing about 10x goals. Someone has to do it. You know, I watch a lot of sports documentaries. No one had to be Michael Jordan. No one needed that, but he wanted it. Kobe Bryant, same way. He wanted it. You watch those documentaries and watch how hard those guys work, how motivated they are to be something that no one has ever been. They probably didn't set out to be the greatest basketball player that ever lived. What they set out to do was get a little bit better each day. So if you want to be the best damn whatever it is, that's awesome. But that best damn thing is going to come one day at a time. So I want to read you a little piece of this book. So we've talked about the gap and the gain, wanting to need it. So I thought this was really well written here. So when you're in the gap, you're desperate to get there because you're trying to escape being here. You're bouncing around rather than getting real and getting traction. When you're in the gap, you aren't thinking long term. You're impulsively trying to fill an unresolved need. Conversely, when you're in the gain, you no longer need to be there. This doesn't mean that you don't have huge goals. It simply means you're fully here. You're where you want to be. You're playing a long game, which means you love where you're at now and you love where you're going. You're here. You don't need to be there. You're here. Be here. By playing the long game, you set your own course. You stop worrying about what other people think about you. You stop seeking other people's approval of how you're living your life. You stop trying to measure up to other people's standard of success. Instead, you decide what success means to you, and you choose the life you'll live. You realize that you're only living that life now. So, from my personal story that I told you, you can understand why that hit me so hard on page 24. Because it's been something that I've been working on for quite some time. And I share that because I know that probably a lot of you are going through the same thing. It's perfectly normal. It's fine. But uncover that. What do you need versus what do you want? Align your actions for something bigger than what you've been given. Because that is how you are going to become a better you. You're not going to become a better you by hitting the goal that we gave you, or you came up with it yourself, or whatever. Because the goal you come up with is going to be achievable, right? Yeah. You're going to do that. So what do your actions need to look like? Something's going to have to change in order to double what you've been given. So what's going to change? What are you prepared to do differently? Now, don't take this the wrong way. It's not like you're doing everything wrong now. That's where you've got to be okay. You're not turning into a different person. You're not doing different things because you're wrong. You're doing different things because you want to be a better version of who you are. So many people are resistant to change because they're scared that if they change, they have to come to grips with they weren't doing something right in the first place. There is a lot of right. Keep doing it. But how do you take that to the next level? How do you become a better version of yourself? That's what we're after, is true transformation. If you focus on becoming a better you, the rest will take care of itself. You know, I've told the Tiger Woods story. Tiger Woods, literally did something in golf through his first, I can't remember the exact years, but 5 or 6 years. He was unstoppable. But guess what he did? He changed his entire damn swing. People were like, what is he thinking? He is the greatest golfer on the planet. And the dude went and changed his entire swing. It worked because then he went and terrorized the tour again with a brand new swing. Now, why would someone do that? Because he was measuring from where he was and he knew he wanted to get a little bit better. So as you look at next year, in whatever role it is, so many people come up to me and, they're super excited about growth and all this stuff. And I love it. It's awesome. They got these grand plans for 4 or 5 years down the road. They're taking on the world and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, okay, cool. But in the back of my mind, you know what I'm thinking? What are you doing on a daily basis to get better at what it is that you're doing right now? Because that is going to be an indicator of if you truly are going to be ready when that time comes. Again, you can set your 10x goal, but then you got to work backwards as to what are you going to do today to get a little bit better? What are you focused on? Oftentimes, it's all the wrong things. When you break it down to the things that you need to focus on, they will all be really simple. The key is going to be you overcoming the need to blame or complain or do anything about why you can't do those things. That's the key. And the bigger key is going to understand that just because you're doing something different in 2024 doesn't mean you did anything wrong in 2023. It just means you're working to get better. As we wrap up today, the biggest thing I want you to take away is that you are perfectly fine right now. But it's your choice as to if you're going to live in the gap, if you're going to be constantly measuring yourself against an ideal, against who I am today, and what am I going to change? And oh my God, if I change, I'm not going to be me, and I'm not any good right now because I've changed. Do you know how much I've changed in 3 years? Every single day. It's okay. It means you're becoming a better version of yourself. But what I need you to do, make your goal bigger. Focus on what you need to do on a daily basis. What is it that you need to focus on to get it better, that you can control? So make your list and then scratch out everything that you can't control. What are you in control of? Focus on that. Be okay with where you are and work to get a little bit better each day. It should be simple. It'll be hard because you've got to change your habits. You got to change what you do on a daily basis. But the actions itself should be simple.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to get connected, you can find me at chadmpeterman.com. To see what our team's up to, you can visit petermanbros.com. As always, keep growing out there.